The first thing I noticed that June morning was frying bacon drifting across a meadow nobody was supposed to be on. 14 rented cabins, a gravel terrace, and a steel welcome arch stood on ground my own deed had covered since 2002. That same association would fine me $3,900 for hiking one trail on my own ground. 11 months later, 96 households woke up to county vehicles on that road. To explain that, I have to go back one summer. My name is Boyd Lantry. I fix diesel engines in Ballard Fork, log trucks, graders, anything that burns fuel and quits at the worst hour. 26 years in the same shop. My wife Marlies runs the counter and the books, faster at both than I've ever been at either. We own Quill Valley. 2,200 acres of timber and rock and one long hay meadow, bought at the Quill Timber Company liquidation in October of 2002, when nobody in this county wanted a mountain with a bad road on it. That June, there was a white pickup parked at the bottom of my lane most mornings, forest green emblem on the door. A man in a matching polo would climb out, photograph my gate, get back in and drive off. He never waved once. I figured somebody was laying out a driveway up on the ridge, and I had a blown injector to deal with. Now, here's the thing about owning a mountain. Once a year, it sends you a bill. Every November, I write one check to Kern County for all 2,200 acres, and Marlies takes the receipt out of my hand and tapes it inside the cabinet door over the parts washer. 22 receipts up there now, 2 rows, corners lapped over each other. The door hasn't shut right in years. "You going to fix that latch this year?" Marlies said. "It's on the list," I said. "It's been on the list for 11 years, she said, and shut the door with her hip, and it swung back open like always. The shop smells like diesel and hot brake cleaner, and that's the smell of my whole life. I was under a grader on Friday the 6th of June, when Marlies carried the mail in and stood there instead of going back to the counter. "You've got one from a homeowners association," she said. "We're not in an association." "That's what I said to the envelope," Marlies said. It disagreed with me. Inside was a violation notice and a bill for $150. Unauthorized use of association trails. "Read it out loud," I said. "I'm greased to the elbow." Unauthorized use of association trails. $150, payable within 30 days. She turned it over. "Boyd, there's a map on the back." "A map of what?" "Of our mountain," she said. I didn't drive up that weekend. I had the water truck, a transmission, and a Saturday I'd promised to Marlies. So it was Monday the 9th of June before I put the truck in low and took the switchbacks up my own road at 5:30 in the morning. I park at the second bend and walk the last quarter mile. I've done it that way since 2002, because the last stretch chews tires. The grass was wet to the knee, my breath was showing, and halfway up I stopped because I could smell bacon. Bacon on my meadow. At 5:40 in the morning. I came up out of the timber, stood on the edge of that meadow, and didn't move for a long time. There were 14 cabins on it, cedar shingle roofs, dark green doors, in 2 long curves like somebody had drawn them with a compass. A gravel loop in front of them, a graded terrace with room for 60 cars, and a steel arch over the entrance with Sablewood Ridge Retreat cut through the plate. And there was a woman in a red blazer at the arch with a clipboard, at 20 to 6 in the morning, counting cars. I'd bought that ground site unseen except from the county road. Quill Timber was selling everything it had to pay its creditors, and nobody bid against me. I signed at a folding table in a hotel conference room. It took 11 minutes. I walked down to the arch. She saw me coming and she smiled. It wasn't nervous. It was the smile of a woman who thought she was about to do me a favor. "Good morning," she said. Can I help you find your cabin? I'm not staying, I said. I got a letter. She looked at the notice. Then she looked at me and the smile changed shape. You're Mr. Lantry, she said. Boyd, I said. Vonda Sterrett. I'm the association president. She tucked the clipboard under her arm. Mr. Lantry, I'm glad you came up because this has been a problem for 2 seasons. Those trails are association amenities. They're insured, they're maintained, and they're for members and registered guests. Which trails? I said. All of them inside the gate. And where's the gate? I said. She pointed at the arch over her head and said it slowly, the way you'd talk to a man being difficult on purpose. Everything inside that arch is ours, Mr. Lantry, and it has been since before you got here. I stood there. Behind her, a screen door banged, and a man came out onto a porch in a bathrobe with a coffee cup and looked at us and went back in. Who deeded it to you? I said. I beg your pardon? Who deeded it to you? Somebody had to sign something. Vonda Sterrett laughed. It wasn't cruel, that's the part I still think about. It was the laugh of somebody who has never in her life had to check. It's on the plat, she said. It's been on the plat since 1994. Mr. Lantry, if you'd like to use the trails, membership is $2,400 a year. I'll waive the initiation. The 150 stands because the notice already went out. That's generous, I said. I try to be reasonable, she said. Those cabins, I said. People pay to sleep in those? They're member priority lodging, Vonda said. The nightly rate funds the trails, the range, the grading, all of it. 9 miles of groomed trail doesn't maintain itself, Mr. Lantry. She said the mileage, the way you'd say a batting average. Would you like a brochure? No, I said. Take a brochure, she said, and put one in my hand and closed my fingers on it like I was 11 years old. How long have those cabins been up there? I said. The first 2 in 2007. 14 now, Vonda said. 15 this fall if the county cooperates. I drove back down that mountain at 10 miles an hour with both hands on the wheel. Well, Marley said, when I came in through the shop door. Road needs grading, I said. Boyd? It needs grading, I said, and I went and found something to take apart. That was the first lie I ever told my wife in 27 years, and it wasn't the last one that summer. That night, I got the closing binder down off the shelf over the parts washer. Blue 3-ring, dusty, holding up a coffee can of drill bits since 2004. 4 pages of survey description. 1 continuous line all the way around 2,200 acres. There was no hole cut out of the middle of it. No 41 acres carved out for anybody. So it's yours, Marley said, reading over my shoulder. It says it's mine, I said. A description says what a man bought. It doesn't say what somebody else already took out of it before he got there. Boyd? I'm a diesel mechanic, Marley's, not a lawyer. If Quill Timber deeded that flat to those people before I ever showed up, and I bought what was left, this is the shortest story you ever heard. So I wrote them a letter, certified, return receipt, 3 sentences. I said I believed the ground under their retreat lay inside my deed at Book 331, page 12, and that if the association held an instrument for it, I'd like a copy. I said I'd rather fix it over coffee than any other way. 9 days later, I got my answer. It ran 2 sentences on a law firm letterhead. Mr. Lantry, the retreat tract is common area of Sablewood Ridge Estates, Phase 2, as shown on the recorded plat. Please direct any further correspondence to the member portal. Stapled behind it was a second violation notice. Another $150. Correspondence submitted outside the member portal. They fined me for writing them a letter. Marlies found the other thing that evening. She came into the shop with her phone held out like it was hot. "Don't get mad," she said. "That's a bad start. The community page. Starrett posted a picture of you." It was me at the arch on the 9th of June, shot from behind and above. The caption said this gentleman had been asked twice to respect association property, and that gate codes would be changing. 39 comments, Marlies said. "You want the highlights?" "No. Some people think a work truck makes them a local." "You said you weren't going to read them." "I said I wasn't going to read them out loud," Marlies said. "I read every one. That flat used to be a sawmill. Quill Timber cut that mountain from 1911 until 1962, and the mill stood right where Cabin 9 stands now. There was still a concrete deck under the grass when I bought it, and I used to eat lunch on that deck and think what a good camp the place would make someday." 10 days after the law firm letter, Lenny Sark came into my shop with a clipboard held against his chest like a shield. Lenny pumps septic tanks for half the county, and I've rebuilt his pump truck twice and only charged him once. "Boyd," he said, "I got a form here, and I'm hoping you'll tell me it's a typo." "What form?" "Sablewood hired me on their drain field expansion. Cabins 15 through 20, phased, and they want the system sized for all 6 now. County won't take the permit without a landowner acknowledgement." He set the clipboard on the bench. "So, Environmental Health printed me one. It's got the tax parcel and the owner's name already filled in." "Whose name?" I said. Lenny looked at the door and then at me. "Yours," he said. 14-0-08-2200. Boyd A. Lantry. That's why I drove down here instead of calling. I read it 3 times. Half a page, a plain county form, no proof of anything. But the assessor had been printing my name on that ground for 23 years and had never once printed theirs. "Are you going to sign it?" Lenny said. "No. They'll get somebody else to." "They can't," I said. "That's the point of the line." Lenny rubbed his neck. "You want me to tell them?" "Hand it back, marked incomplete," I said, "and say the landowner didn't sign. That's all true, and it's all you have to say. Boyd, they've got 14 cabins up there. I know exactly how many they've got," I said. "And that's where I made my decision. And it's the whole rest of this story. I could have driven up that hill with my deed and made a scene. Instead, I went quiet. And every week I stayed quiet, it cost me money. On the 5th of July, the notices stopped coming one at a time and started coming every Saturday. $150 apiece, whether I'd left the shop that week or not. By mid-month, I had a coffee can on the bench with nothing in it but folded cream envelopes. Then came the one with a date on it. Join as a non-resident amenity member by the 1st of August at $2,400 a year. Or, and I'm quoting, the association would move to address the encroachment of my logging road upon association common area. "They want to bill you for your own road," Marlies said. "They want me to buy a membership in my own meadow," I said. I called the number at the bottom. Vonda picked up on the second ring, cheerful as a bank. "Mr. Lantry, I hoped you'd call. I got your August letter." "I know it reads sharp," Vonda said. "That's council's language, not mine. Boyd, may I call you Boyd? We have been more than patient with you. Every other landowner on this mountain joined years ago." "How many other landowners are there on this mountain?" I said. There was a pause of about a second and a half. "That's not really the point," she said. "One question and I'll let you go. Who signed the paper that put my meadow into your association? It's on the plat. That's a map. Who signed it?" "Mr. Lantry, I have a board meeting in 4 minutes," Vonda said. $2,400. 1st of August. It really is the easiest thing you'll do all year." The next morning, I drove 40 minutes to Kern County Title and asked for whoever had been there longest. That was Georgia Nyland, 22 years in the plant. I gave her the plat, the deed, the 2 letters, and the county form. She read all of it without a word, then read the plat again with a straight edge on it. "Mr. Lantry," Georgia said, "do you know what a plat is?" "A map." "It's a map," Georgia said. "That's all it is. A plat can show you a common area. It cannot give anybody a common area. To move land into an association, you need an instrument, a supplemental declaration, signed by whoever owns the dirt and recorded. The plat draws the picture. The instrument does the work. And if there's no instrument, then there's a picture," she said. She turned the plat toward me and put her pen on a line of small type in the corner, down under the legend, the same size as the symbol key. "Retreat tract," she read out loud. "Ownership not established, see separate instrument." Neither of us said anything for a while. Somewhere behind her, a printer ran. "How long to find out if the separate instrument exists?" I said. 10 weeks. Everything from 1994 to 1997 in this county is on microfilm, and the index for those years is handwritten. And it's $3,250 for a litigation guarantee. That's a title company's sworn search, the kind you can hand a judge. I'll want it in writing that you understand it might come back showing they're right. "Order it," I said. 10 weeks is a long time when somebody's mailing you a bill every Saturday. On the 7th of August, I heard a machine on my mountain. You can hear a dozer 3 miles up a valley like mine, a low knocking that comes and goes with the wind, and once you know what it is, you can't hear anything else. Marlies came with me. That mattered later. We got as far as the second bend, and there was a man standing in the middle of my 2-track. Forest green polo, wraparound sunglasses, a radio on his shoulder, and a side-by-side parked crossways behind him. He came off the verge in 3 steps, planted his boots, and put up one flat hand at chest height like he was directing traffic at a ball game. I stopped. I rolled the window down. "Morning," he said. "Active work zone. Members and contractors only past this point." "What's your name?" I said. "Cody. I'm with Association Security." "Cody, this is my road." "Sir, everything above the cattle guard is association property." He tipped his chin at the windshield. "You've got a couple of notices already. I'm trying to keep you from getting another one." Up the hill behind him I could see the top of the dozer moving, and the raw yellow of new ground, and the stumps. "How many trees?" I said. "Couldn't tell you." "How many trees, Cody?" "Sir, I need you to back it down to the cattle guard," he said, and unclipped the radio off his shoulder and held it out where I could see it. "Or I can have a deputy up here in 20 minutes and we can all stand out in the sun." Marlies said my name once, quietly, from the passenger seat, and I backed my truck a quarter-mile down my own road, in reverse, with my wife watching. Because the whole thing I had going for me was a piece of paper and Ballard fork that I couldn't prove yet. We didn't say anything until the cattle guard. "You're going to let that stand," Marlies said. "For now," I said. "He put his hand up at you, Boyd, on our road. I know what he did." "Then tell me something, anything. Tell me you've got a plan." "I've got a title order," I said. "That's not a plan," Marlies said. "That's a receipt." We counted the stumps 2 days later from the ridge across the draw. 60. A 90-year fir at that elevation is about as big around as a kitchen table. Then I walked down into the cut, and I'm not proud of the next part. The slope smelled like sap and hot diesel, and I put my hand flat on one of those cut faces and it was still warm. I threw a felling wedge into the timber as hard as I could and yelled something at nobody. And then I stood in the middle of 60 stumps with my ears ringing. Marliese gave me about a minute. "Are you done?" she said. "I'm done." "Then get the camera," Marliese said, "and photograph every one of them with the date on it. That's the only part of this that matters later." That night the phone rang at the house, and it was a woman I'd never met. "Is this Boyd Lantry?" "Alma Kettner. I'm on lot 22 up at Sablewood. I saw what Vonda put on that page about you, and I want you to come sit in my kitchen." Alma Kettner is 63, about as tall as my elbow, and keeps her reading glasses on a beaded chain so she can drop them and keep talking. Her kitchen table had 4 banker's boxes on it and 1 lemon cake. 19 years of newsletters, she said, patting the top box. My Ed used to say I was a hoarder. Ed's gone 4 years now, and last spring they fined me $6,200 over the woodshed he built. For what? Unapproved outbuilding. He poured that pad in 2003. She cut the cake without asking if I wanted any. I went to a meeting about it. Vonda said the rules apply to everyone equally, and everybody nodded, and I paid it out of the money Ed left me because I was too tired to be a problem. "Mrs. Kettner." "Alma," she said. "Just Alma." "Alma, why did you call me?" She put a plate in front of me and sat down. "Because I've watched that retreat go from 2 cabins to 14, she said. "And every one of those years the newsletter said it was ours, and I never once saw a deed. I typed for a title company in Delmar County for 11 years before I married Ed. You get a feel for when a thing has no paper under it." There was a stack of brochures under the sugar bowl. She slid them sideways to make room for the kettle, and one slid onto the floor, and I picked it up and put it back without reading it. Glossy, green cabins on a green meadow. 2009 on the back. I didn't think about that brochure again for 2 months. On the 9th of September, the association recorded a document against my parcel. Notice of claim of common area. 1 page, signed by Vonda Sterrett as president, claiming 41 acres inside my deed and putting the whole world on notice of it. They didn't sue me. They didn't have to. They just wrote it down at the courthouse. 2 weeks later, Dane at Ballard Fork Savings called and asked me to come in that day. "Boyd, I hate this," Dane said. "Your equipment line, the $180,000. What about it? It's secured by the valley, and there's a claim on the valley now." He turned his monitor around like the screen could explain it better than he could. "Policy is, clouded collateral, the line goes frozen until it clears. I can't draw on it, you can't draw on it. I've got a lift ordered." "I know." "I've got a payroll on Friday," I said. "Boyd, I know. I've had your account since 2009. He rubbed his face. "How long until it clears?" Dane said. "I don't know." "Then who's going to clear it?" Dane said. "I don't know that either," I said. Ike Sobel had worked for me 2 years, 27, laughed at everything, could pull a head gasket faster than I could. I told him on a Tuesday out in the yard because I couldn't do it inside. "Is it me?" Ike said. "No. Boyd, if it's something I did." "It's not you, Ike. It's a piece of paper somebody filed at the courthouse, and I can't get around it before Friday." He stood there with his hands hanging. "Can I come back?" "Yes," I said. "I don't know when, yes." He drove out of the yard, and I stood in the gravel and listened to his truck go down the highway, and that was the lowest I got in the whole thing. Not the trees, not backing down my own road, that. "I want to ask you something, and I want a real answer. If you'd been standing in my yard listening to Ike's truck go down that highway, would you have driven up the mountain right then and told them everything you had? Tell me in the comments, because I've gone back and forth on it for a year. On the 1st of October, Georgia Neeland called and asked me to come in instead of taking it over the phone. She had the guarantee in a blue cover and 3 reels of microfilm printouts squared up beside it. "There is no supplemental declaration," Georgia said. "Not in 1994, not in 1995, 1996, or 1997. Not under Quill Timber Company, not under the association, not under any name in the index." I went back to 1988 and I came forward to the day I printed this. "Mr. Lantry, there is no instrument anywhere in this county that moves that ground." "Then what have they got?" Georgia turned the plat around and put her pen on that line of small type again, the way she had the first time. "They've got the picture," she said, "and a note from their own surveyor telling them it was only a picture." I took a copy to Dane that same afternoon. He read it twice, told me a title guarantee is not a court order, and left my line frozen. Delia Crowder's office is over a feed store and has 1 window and about 900 books. She read the guarantee front to back while I sat there, made 3 marks on a legal pad, and capped her pen. "You own it," she said. "That part isn't interesting. Here's what's interesting. 3 things can still beat you, and they're all going to be in their answer. So, we're going to kill all 3 before we file. Go ahead. 1. Adverse possession. If they've used it openly and continuously and hostilely for 10 years, which is the number in this state, the law can hand it to them anyway. But there's a second element people forget. Payment of taxes." She looked up. "Who's paid the taxes on those 41 acres?" "I have. Every November since 2003, the county bills the buildings to the association on a separate improvement account. They have never once been billed for the dirt." "Good," Delia said. "The statute is about the dirt. Can you prove you paid it?" "Yes." "Bank records are fine. Assessor's records are better." "I've got the receipts," I said. "All of them," Delia said. "Every one of them." Delia put her pen down. "Mr. Lantry, I have asked that question maybe 200 times in my career. I get somewhere in the house about 190 times." I drove home, took a screwdriver to the hinges, and came back the next morning with the cabinet door in the bed of my truck under a moving blanket. 22 receipts, 2 rows, the tape gone yellow at the edges, and the ink still black. Delia stood it up against the bookcase and looked at it for a while. "That latch never did shut right," I said. "Don't ever fix it," Delia said. 2, she went on, hostility. Adverse possession has to be hostile. Not angry, hostile in the legal sense. Use without permission. If anybody ever gave them permission, even a handshake from a lumber company that doesn't exist anymore, the clock never started. How would I ever find that? "You wouldn't," Delia said. "They would. It'll be in their own paper, if it exists, because people brag about being invited." I called Alma that night and asked whether 19 years of newsletters ever said who let them onto that flat. "Give me 2 days," Alma said. She called me back in 1. She'd found it in a brochure, not a newsletter, and read it to me in the flat voice of a woman who knew exactly what she was holding. Bottom of the back page, in about 4-point type. "Retreat use by courtesy of Quill Timber Company." That's 2009, Boyd. They printed 9,000 of those. "Alma," I said, "there's more. Newsletter, spring of 2011. They reprinted the board, minutes back then. Cabin expansion approved, title question tabled." She let that sit. Tabled. "Say that last part again. Title question tabled," Alma said. "They wrote it down themselves, Boyd. They knew in 2011, and they built 6 more cabins on top of it." Delia laughed once when she read them, which I had never heard her do. "Item 3, she said. "Good faith improver. If a man builds a barn on your land honestly, believing it's his, the law protects him. He gets paid for it or he gets to move it. That's for honest mistakes. She tapped the newsletter. Title question tabled. That's not a mistake, that's a decision. So what happens to the cabins? A building on your ground, built by somebody with no lease and no title and no good faith, is a fixture, Delia said. A fixture belongs to the land. The land is yours. I sat in that chair for a minute. All 14. All 14, Delia said. Plus main profits. Plus what? I said. Maisne profits. The rent they earned off your ground while they were on it. 6 years back, that's a limitation period. She was writing again. Which brings me to timing. We file in November. Why November? 2 reasons. Every night they sell between now and then goes into their booking ledger in their own handwriting, and that ledger is the best damages evidence I will ever get. And filing in July turns half this suit into a fight about whether we were trying to ruin a season. I thought about the man in the bathrobe on the porch with the coffee cup. There's a third reason, I said. There's families up there with reservations. I'm not putting anybody's vacation in the ditch to make a point. It's a rental. Nobody lives in those cabins. As long as that stays true, I can wait. Then we wait, Delia said. We filed on the 12th of November. Ejectment, which is the lawyer's word for get off my land. Quiet title, which means a judge writes down once and for all whose it is. Mesna profits. And 1 count against Vonda Sterrett personally, for the commission her company had been taking off my ground. A civil deputy served the association's registered agent at her real estate office on a Thursday, and I know what that looked like because Alma was 3 doors down getting her hair cut. She came out on the sidewalk, Alma told me. She read it standing up. Then she called somebody and said the word nuisance 4 times. Their answer came the day after Christmas. Adverse possession. Locas. That's the one that says I waited too long. 22 pages and not 1 line of it attached a deed because there wasn't one to attach. And here's the part that I still can't get over. They kept booking. All winter on their own site, cabins 1 through 14. 65 nights sold in January alone. Delia printed the availability calendar every Monday and put it in the file. Do they understand what they're doing? I said. They understand they're going to win, she said. People who are certain don't hedge. And then, in January, I made the only real mistake I made in the whole thing, and it was a kind one, which somehow makes it worse. It snowed the 3rd week of the month, and I drove up to Alma's with a bag of stove pellets. And I sat in that kitchen looking at a woman who'd already paid $6,200 for her dead husband's woodshed. And I heard myself say it. Alma, when this lands, there's going to be an assessment on every house up here, and anybody selling after that will have to disclose it. She put her cup down. And you're telling me because you'd hear it from somebody else in a month, and I'd rather you heard it from me. Alma Kettner is not a gossip, but she has a nephew named Gil who plows her lane and sits on the landscape committee, and Alma loves that boy, and she did what any aunt would do. The board knew by the 1st of February, 5 weeks before they'd have known otherwise. Vonda spent those 5 weeks writing. A special newsletter went to all 96 homes on the 20th of February under the heading Setting the Record Straight, and I have it framed in my shop now because of 1 sentence in it. The association has held the retreat tract continuously since 1994 by use, maintenance, and improvement, as shown on the recorded plat. By use, not by deed. Delia read it twice and slid it into the file without a word. And that was the last day I ever worried about how the case would come out. Delia called the shop on the 27th of March. Marley's picked up the extension without asking me. It's signed, Delia said. Do you want it in English or do you want me to read it? Read it. Ejectment granted. quiet title granted. The 14 cabins are declared fixtures belonging to the land, and the land is yours." She stopped for a second. "Mena profits, $2,204,160. Marlies said one word on that extension, and I'm not going to repeat it. "Say the number again," I said. $2,204,160, 6,560 rented nights at $336 a night, 6 seasons, straight out of their own booking ledger. Not one of those figures is mine, Boyd. They wrote them. And Sterrett? $484,915 of that total is entered against her personally," Delia said, "because that 22% never reached the association. It went to her own company." There was no trial and nothing to watch. Both sides had filed everything they had, and what they had was a plat with a note on it and a cabinet door. On the 8th of April, the court issued a writ of possession and gave them 30 days to remove anything they wanted. On the 8th of May, those 30 days ran out and not one screw had come off that mountain. They'd appealed. Their own lawyers had told them, in writing, that an appeal doesn't stop a writ unless you post a bond, and the bond here was $2.4 million. The board voted 4-1 not to post it. Posting it meant special assessing 96 houses in April, and April is when you're trying to get reelected. Founders Weekend is the 3rd weekend in May. They've run it since 2007. Pancake breakfast, a fun run, a ribbon on whatever's newest. Alma called me Friday night. "They're doing it anyway," she said. "There's a tent, there's a band from Delmar. There's a ribbon on cabin 15 and it isn't even finished. It's still got house wrap on it. How many people? 300, if the weather holds. It's holding. Alma, I'm going to come up Saturday. Why on earth? Because it's my meadow," I said, "and I've been getting billed to walk on it for 2 seasons." On Saturday, the 16th of May, I parked at the cattle guard with everybody else and walked up my own road with a paper cup of coffee, like any other guest. Cody Baskin was directing parking off a golf cart and looked straight through me. Kids on the fun run, a dozen coolers, the whole flat mowed. At 2 o'clock, Vonda Sterrett got up on a flatbed trailer in the red blazer with a microphone and a pair of oversized scissors, thanked the committee, thanked the volunteers, and then said this: "I know there's been some noise this spring, so I want every one of you to hear it from me, standing right here. We have filed our appeal, our counsel is confident, and nothing on this mountain is going anywhere." 300 people clapped. I clapped too, because a man standing still with his hands down draws more attention than one clapping. Then she found me. I don't know who pointed me out. Her eyes went across that crowd and stopped, and she smiled the way she'd smiled at me at 20 to 6 in the morning, 11 months before. "And I see our neighbor decided to join us today," she said into the microphone. "Boyd, you're welcome here. You've always been welcome here. All you ever had to do was ask." 300 heads turned around. "I'm not joining," I said. I didn't say it loud. The people near me heard it and passed it back. "I'm just walking my trail." She laughed, and the crowd laughed with her, and she cut the ribbon on a cabin with house wrap on it, and the band from Delmar played, and that was the last good hour that association ever had. Perry Alt caught me at my truck at the cattle guard. Association treasurer, windbreaker, wouldn't look right at me. "Mr. Lantry," Perry Alt said, "I voted to post the bond." "I know who voted how, Mr. Alt. It's in the minutes." "I quit Tuesday." He looked back up the hill at the tent. "They think it's stopped. I've told them 4 times it isn't. Vonda keeps saying counsel is confident, and counsel keeps writing back that confidence is not a bond." He dropped his keys and picked them up. Is it going to be bad? It's going to be exactly what the order says, I said. Their 30 days had run out 8 days before, and nobody up there had touched a thing. That was Saturday. Sunday morning came at 5:40. I'd been up since 3. Delia met me at the cattle guard in the dark with a folder and a thermos, and at 20 to 6 the first headlights came around the bottom bend, and then the next, until there were 9 county vehicles climbing that switchback with their headlights on and not one light bar flashing. That's a civil standby, not a raid. It's the quietest, loud thing you'll ever see. Sheriff Amos Trice got out and put his hat on before he said good morning. Mr. Lantry, Miss Crowder. He looked at the folder. Read me the operative language. Delia read it. Writ of possession. 14 structures and 1 unfinished shell. Restore the premises to the plaintiff. Anybody sleeping up there? The sheriff said. No, sir, I said. Last guests checked out at 11 yesterday morning. They blocked the calendar for Founders Weekend, so nothing was sold for last night. I've got their own availability page printed for all 14. You walk them with my deputy anyway, Trice said. Every one. Knock, wait, open, look. Then the locksmith works. We did it that way. 14 doors. Clear, the deputy said at cabin 1, and 13 more times going down the row. Write the time on every notice, Trice said. Both of you initial them. That word is the part I care about most. Nobody's home was touched that morning. Nobody's belongings went out on a lawn. Nobody ever lived in those cabins. They were rentals, and the last guests had checked out the morning before. That's the whole reason I sat on my hands from June to November. The locksmith started at cabin 1 at 6:20. The notices went up at 7. At 8 o'clock, the first cars came up for the Sunday pancake breakfast and found a chain across the steel arch, a deputy at the cattle guard, and a sheet of paper on all 14 doors. Vonda got there at 8:15. She came out of her car with her phone already at her ear, still in the red blazer, walked past the sheriff and the deputy and straight up to me, and said the thing I'll hear for the rest of my life. Boyd, where are my keys? And I told her, in front of about 300 people who had come up that hill for pancakes. There's no instrument, I said. That's all this is. Your plat from 1994 draws that ground as common area, and your own surveyor wrote a note on it in the corner. Ownership not established. See separate instrument. There is no separate instrument. A title officer searched every index in this county from 1988 to the day she printed it. Nobody ever signed that 41 acres over to anybody, so it stayed inside my deed, book 331, page 12, October of 2002. We have used this land for, Vonda said. For 31 years, I know, 19 of them with cabins on it. That's adverse possession, and it needs 2 things you never had. It needs taxes, and I've paid every dollar of tax on those 41 acres since 2003, and I've got 23 receipts taped to a cabinet door. And it needs hostility, and your own brochure says the retreat was here by courtesy of Quill Timber Company. Courtesy isn't hostile. Courtesy is permission. She started to say something, and I kept going, because I'd waited 11 months, and the cabins are mine, and I know how that sounds. A building put on another man's ground without a lease and without title is a fixture. There's a law that protects a builder who made an honest mistake. Your own 2011 board minutes say, and I can quote it, title question tabled. That's not a mistake. You knew, and you built 6 more. Somebody in the crowd said, "What?" out loud. And your own contractor's county form has my parcel number on it and my name printed on the owner's line, I said. You handed me that one yourselves, and the appeal doesn't hold any of it because an appeal without a bond doesn't stop a writ. Your board voted 4-1 not to post it. It's in your April minutes. You mailed them to everybody standing here. 300 people, and the only sound on that meadow was one cooler lid. Sheriff Trice put his thumbs in his belt. "Ma'am," he said, "the county's part in this is possession. You'll want to speak to your counsel about the rest of it." Vonda Sterrett stood on the grass with her phone in her hand. Behind her, a woman in a fun-run shirt started folding chairs, quietly, one at a time, the way people do when they've decided the day is over. By 9 o'clock, the tent was down. Nobody yelled. People came over instead, one or two at a time, the way you ask a question in a hospital hallway. "Is it true about the taxes?" a man in a fun-run shirt said. "Yes?" "Did anybody on that board ever actually see a deed?" "There isn't one," I said, 11 different times to 11 different people. "There was never one. Go ask for the file." At 20 to 10, a man I'd never met came up with his hands in his pockets. "My daughter's getting married in July," he said. "I booked cabin 4 a year ago, paid for the whole week." "Same cabin, same week," I said. "You'll pay me instead of them, and you'll pay less." He shook my hand with both of his and walked back down to his car. By noon, there was nobody left on that meadow but me, Delia, a locksmith, and 14 buildings I never wanted. In August, I asked Delia where that money physically comes from. She put the file on her desk and went down it. Item 1. On the 2nd of June, the sheriff levied their accounts. Operating and reserve together, $316,245. That's low for 96 houses. It is. They'd already spent $214,000 on their own lawyers because their insurance company refused to pay for the defense back in December. You don't get covered for something you did on purpose. She looked up. "Hear that date, Boyd. They read that refusal in December and voted in April to hold a ribbon cutting." "What's item 2?" I said. On the 14th of July, the sheriff sold the only ground that association ever actually owned. 9 4/10 acres, the clubhouse and the pool. A hotel group out of Delmar took it for $635,000. So that's $951,000. Which leaves $768,000, Delia said. Item 3. On the 28th of July, the members adopted a special assessment. $768,000 divided by 96 homes. $8,000 a house. I sat there a while. "That's Alma," I said. "That's Alma and 95 other people, and I'm not going to talk you out of feeling bad about it. Somebody was always going to pay for 19 years of nobody checking. It was going to be you, or it was going to be them." I paid Alma's $8,000 the day the assessment passed. She was angry about it for a week, and then she quit bringing it up. 34 of those homeowners have since sued the 5 board members personally, and I hope they win. Vonda's $484,915 came out of her pocket, not theirs. The sheriff took $61,400 out of Sterrett Mountain Management, and that was everything in it. The rest is a lien on her lot and a payment schedule that runs longer than she's going to enjoy. In September, the state suspended her property manager's license. Vonda Sterrett didn't sell up and disappear. She's still on Lot 3. She just isn't in charge of anything anymore. The same order released their claim of record against my parcel, and Dane had my line unfrozen inside a week. It voided every notice they ever mailed me, too. 26 cream envelopes. $3,900 I never paid and never will. The cabins were appraised at $1,610,000, and they stayed where they sat, on my ground, in my name, because that's what a fixture is. 3 of the 5 board members resigned in June. Cody Baskin's security contract went with them. Perry Alt came back and served out the year as treasurer for nothing, and he's the reason those 96 houses still have a plowed road and a working mailbox cluster. One more thing, and it matters to me more than the money. The week the writ was executed, I recorded a permanent easement, no charge and no expiration, giving the fire district and the ambulance service full access up my valley road and across that meadow forever. Nobody up there waits 1 extra minute for help because of anything I did. Alma drove down to my shop in June and stood in the doorway and told me about Gil before I could say hello. I told him you'd been kind to me. I never thought he'd... Alma, I said. I opened his mouth. You just used his ears. We opened the cabins on the 27th of July, $89 a night, where they had charged $336, and no membership, no gate code, trails free to anybody willing to walk up. I hired 4 people, and the first call I made was to Ike Sobel. "Is this the cabin thing?" Ike said. "It's the cabin thing." "I'm already in the truck," he said. The season sold out in 11 days. The first check off that meadow was $38,000 for 1 month, and after 4 wages and the propane, I kept a little over half of it, and I sat in the yard and looked at it a long while, because for 2 seasons, the only paper that Mountain ever sent me had $150 on it. I've thought a lot about how that many people could all be so sure. Here's the only thing I've landed on. Nobody up there was lying to me. Vonda believed it. The board believed it. 96 households believed it, because somebody drew it on a map in 1994, and everybody after that pointed at the map. Being certain is free. Checking cost $3,250 in 10 weeks, and in 31 years, nobody thought it was worth it. In November, I wrote my check to Kern County the same as always, and Marley's had to fetch the cabinet door out of the corner of the shop first, because Delia had sent it back with a note that said, "Don't ever fix that latch." 24, Marley said, pressing the tape down with her thumb. "You know what these are worth now. $2,204,160, I said. "They're worth a mountain," she said. "It still doesn't shut." And in the spring I got the sign out from behind the parts washer. I cut that board in 2004 out of a cedar off my own place and wrote the letters myself, and never hung it, because I never got around to the camp I meant to build. Quill Valley Camp. Established 1911. I hung it on their steel arch. 4 bolts, 11 minutes. It's the only sign on that road now. If you want more stories like this one, there's a new one on this channel every day. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.